Okay, so picture this. 100 pilots, one private jet, and a series of challenges designed to push them to their absolute physical and mental limits. That is the insane setup for a MrBeast spectacle. And today, we're going to deconstruct exactly how this competition was engineered to be one of the most fascinating social experiments you can find online.
First things first, you need the hook. And what a hook it is. Not just a pile of cash, but a completely life-altering asset. A $2.4 million private jet. I mean, that's the kind of prize that makes people do some truly extraordinary things. And the premise? It's brutally simple, laid out right from the jump. You win, you keep it. That's it. No catches, no tricky fine print. This one simple declaration sets the entire stage for everything that's about to unfold, starting with the very first and most direct phase of the game.
So the first phase is all about brute force. It's a culling. I mean, you start with this massive group of 100 people, and you have to find a way to filter them down to a manageable number, and you've got to do it fast. The solution? Purely physical tests.
First up, a team challenge, pulling a 40,000-pound plane. This is all about collective strength, and boom, it immediately cuts 2/3 of the competition. But then, it pivots to individual endurance, withstanding 60-mile-per-hour winds from a jet engine. And this wasn't just about being strong, an actual NFL player was literally blown away. It proved that your strategy and how you anchored yourself were just as vital as your raw power.
And here is where you see this beautiful, almost poetic irony that's baked right into the challenge. The very multi-million-dollar prize they are all fighting for is the thing that's literally blasting them out of a competition. The prize itself becomes the obstacle. I mean, that's just a perfect metaphor for this entire contest.
Okay, so with the purely physical outliers filtered out, the competition takes a hard pivot. It's not about who's the strongest anymore. Now it's about who is the most strategic, the most trustworthy, or, yeah, the most deceptive.
And this brings us to the skydiving challenge, which really just boils down to one central, gut-wrenching question. What is your integrity worth when a multi-million-dollar jet is on the line? Contestants are literally forced to choose between telling the truth and getting a guaranteed ticket to the next round. And right away, two very clear paths emerge. You have some people, driven by a kind of professional code, who chose honesty. One pilot even said, "You know, we have integrity." But then another contestant, Brett, he figures it out fast. In this game, lying pays off. His one successful lie just instantly poisons the well. It transforms the whole thing from a physical contest into a classic prisoner's dilemma, where your own personal gain is now pitted directly against the group's trust. And the fallout from that lie? It was immediate. Trust just evaporated. You can feel the absolute shock and betrayal in this reaction. The game was no longer a series of fun physical challenges. It was a total mind game where you couldn't believe a word anyone said. The whole social fabric of the competition just started to tear apart at the seams. So, after testing their bodies and then testing their morals, the competition enters its final and, frankly, its most grueling phase. It becomes a simple, painful war of attrition. This right here is the ultimate test of pure endurance. The premise is simple. Last person with their hand on the jet wins. But the timeline here shows just how brutal this was. It starts with a simple walk through Riyadh, but as the hours just drag on and on, the difficulty escalates. Soon they're running, they're sleep-deprived, and by hour 22, people are literally on the verge of collapse.
And to speed things up, a button is introduced. Every time someone presses it, a new, punishing rule gets added. First, no more sitting. Okay, then you can only use one finger on the jet. Then, that one finger has to stay inside a tiny red square. And finally, the killer blow, you have to stand on one foot. Each rule is just so deliberately designed to isolate specific muscles and amplify the pain and exhaustion.
So you have to ask yourself, right? Why would anyone endure this? And this is where the human element really shines through. They weren't just fighting for a luxury toy. No, they were fighting to start a business, to pay for IVF treatments for their family, to provide for their daughters. These deep personal motivations are the fuel that keeps them going long after their bodies are screaming at them to quit. The sheer human cost of this spectacle becomes terrifyingly clear. One contestant, Samuel, pushes his body so far past its breaking point that he literally passes out. He doesn't quit, his body quits for him. It is a shocking, visceral moment that shows you just how incredibly high the stakes really are for these people.
All right, so after more than 22 hours of this, we're finally down to the final 3. And just when you think it's all about to end, the entire nature of the game changes one last time. It morphs into a high-stakes, last-minute negotiation.
So here's the twist. The last 3 have 1 hour to unanimously agree on who gets the jet. If they can't decide, if even one person disagrees, the jet goes to nobody. All that pain, all that suffering and endurance would be for absolutely nothing. It is a masterstroke of psychological pressure.
And immediately, 2 conflicting philosophies just slam into each other. One contestant wants a final challenge, a game of skill to determine a worthy winner. But the others, who are completely and utterly exhausted, they argue for a game of pure luck. They think it's the only fair way to decide when they've all clearly given everything they have.
So the game of skill argument, it's all about meritocracy, right? It's about earning the prize through one final, decisive action. As he put it, it's a matter of principle for him. It's not just about winning the jet.
But this disagreement, it quickly turns personal and really hostile. The tension just explodes when the game of skill guy accuses the others of just wanting a handout, and at that point, any real communication completely breaks down. The clock is ticking down, and they are further from a solution than ever before.
In the end, it's the fear of mutual destruction that wins out. With just minutes left on that clock, the prospect of every single one of them going home with nothing becomes way too real. The holdout finally gives in, and they agree to leave the fate of a $2.4 million jet to a random game of chance.
So, what's the secret sauce here? When you really break it down, what is the formula that makes this kind of thing so captivating to millions of people?
Well, it all breaks down into this really powerful formula. You start with absolutely massive, life-changing stakes. Then, you funnel the contestants through these escalating challenges, starting with broad physical tests, then narrowing into intense psychological dilemmas that reveal who they really are. And you cap the whole thing off with a social endgame, a pure test of negotiation under extreme pressure. It's a masterclass in manufacturing drama. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. When you strip away all the flashy editing and the huge prize, are we just watching a game show, or are we actually witnessing a massive, real-time social experiment that reveals something truly fundamental about human nature, about ambition, and about what every single one of us is willing to do when everything is on the line?